Deep processing versus surface processing strategies. Now, let's have a closer look at what do these two types of strategies mean. And we have Arman, who has worked a lot on the differences between these two strategies. So, what are actually deep processing strategies? Deep processing strategies are strategies which mean that the learner is completely committed to the goal of the learning of the second language. He or she invests himself or herself to the learning task. They are totally engaged. And a sign of this engagement or a part of this, an indicator of this strategy is that when a new second language structure is presented to them, they deliberately try to develop associations with the old knowledge they have. Maybe this knowledge comes from the first language or an earlier learned second language structure. In any case, they try to elaborate upon the learning, and on the basis of this new information, they also try to develop a hypothesis to somehow predict how this would apply in other circumstances. In any case, they are going beyond the immediate task and working more extensively and, of course, intensively. For instance, if they are given a comprehension passage, they will not only just find the answer to a question that comes at the end of a reading task. They will constantly see if there are alternative interpretations, if there is a possibility or that what they are reading might have a different kind of meaning. So they are not satisfied with just superficial work, but they are interested in actually reconstruction of their own conceptual frameworks. So when they are engaged in second language learning, they would say something like this to themselves: oh, I thought this meant this. Oh, I see, this meant this. This is something like what we say in Urdu. All right. So I misunderstood it for the first time, and now I understand. So this would mean that this also means that. So they're constantly talking to themselves using this inner speech, this private speech, and they are trying to develop and redevelop their conceptual frameworks. And then we have surface processing strategies. Several of our students in our classrooms actually are satisfied with using only surface processing strategies. Just indicate to them, for instance, if we take the same example of reading text and they are given a comprehension passage, just tell them, what the answer is, and they're quick to copy it. They will not question it. They will not challenge it. They're satisfied if they have just small inkling of what the answer is, they'll just write it. So the problem with this surface processing is that less information stays in the memory because they have not really processed the information and they have just moved on to the other task. And in surface processing, we see that there is no emotional or cognitive investment. They're not interested so much, they don't commit themselves too much, and they do not analyze to that extent. Now, what is the successful combination of strategies that might help my students to learn second language more effectively? Well, researchers say that a combination of deep processing strategies where they are inclined to develop links along with achieving strategies, that is some sort of competitiveness, a feeling of competitiveness, might help the learners in learning the language more effectively. So in Biggs' model of 1992, what what he tries to do is actually develop a connection between deep strategies and motivation. So Biggs would argue that learners would only employ deep strategies if they are motivated in a specific way. However, what Ehrman says actually is that learners may not at times actually have a choice of using deep strategies. They cannot possibly use deep strategies. And when is that? It is when the learners have weak educational background, the material that is coming to them is beyond them, there is no aptitude for learning, they are not interested in learning, there is this inexperience of how to use certain strategies, and if they have inflexible learning styles, so they are not flexible enough to adapt to the different nature of language learning.